Linda Johnson, could you please give the invocation, please?
Let us bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, I praise you and I thank you for all that you are. I thank you for your presence here tonight. I thank you for every single person, every bloodline, every family tree in this city of Freeport. Father, I release your word tonight that says, my grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in weakness. That's from 2 Corinthians 12:9. Father, we remember the parting of the Red Sea. The Israelites had an army behind them and a sea in front of them. Instead of removing the waters before them, you parted the waters so they could walk right through them. In this city, this nation, there are battles raging all around. We thank you for giving the people of this city and this governing body the grace to walk through these troubled times. Thank you for the grace in the form of peace, patience, trust, and perseverance. We decree that truth, justice, righteousness, peace, and joy will come to this city of Freeport as the bondages are broken, wounded hearts are healed, and honor and respect for one another is restored and established. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Linda. Now we'll officially call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Attending in person, Mayor Miller.
Here.
Alderpersons McLanathan.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Busker.
Here.
Brashaw.
Here.
Mysick.
Here.
And Berbere.
Here.
Alderperson Borneman, are you attending electronically?
Yeah, I'm present.
Staff present in person. Manager Bucas.
Present.
Director Richter. Director Hines.
Present.
Okay, she's remote. Back to person, I apologize. Director Boyer? Present. Chief Summers? Present. Chief Liggett? Present. Director Kopansky, I saw you. Present. Director Sutman? Present. Clerk Anderson? And Attorney Zito? Present. Also attending remotely, Director Huffines?
Present.
Director Jansen will be marked absent. Have I missed anyone? Not a staff, I don't, no.
All right, if you could please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderperson Brashaw. And Alderman Brashaw, the meeting is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before you, we have, in your packet, you received the minutes from the last committee of the whole meeting, which was March 9th, that we attended in person.
The agenda first.
So do we have an approval of those
Actually, you have
minutes?
to do the agenda first, sorry.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you. Item number 4, we're going to approve the agenda first. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Busker, a second by Alderman Mysick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have anyone opposed?
Aye.
Alderperson Brashaw, when we have a remote meeting, we need to take the roll call. I'm sorry.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
My apologies. I know you've not been here in person in a while.
Madam Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
Brashaw,
Aye.
Mysick,
Aye.
Berbere,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
McLanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll try this again. Let's go for the approval of the minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting held on March 9th, 2020. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Alderman Mysick, a second by Alderperson Busker. And Madam Clerk, will you take roll, please?
Brashaw,
Aye.
Mysick,
Aye.
Berbere,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
McLanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
Minutes are approved, 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, I see we have no public comments, so we will be moving on to item number 7. This is the Housing Authority Monthly Report, and it will be presented to us by Babette Jameson Varner.
Thank you. And as always, I really do appreciate the opportunity for you all allowing us to come in and share with you some updates and progress that the Housing Authority of the City of Freeport is making on its recovery plan. You all have received the report in advance, and unless you have specific questions, I'm just going to highlight a few particular areas. The one area that I always like to talk about is related to governance. And in your report, we outlined some upcoming trainings as well as trainings that have been completed by staff as well as commissioners. The value of this is that the ultimate goal of this work plan is sustainability, is to make certain that the Housing Authority will be able to be strong with policies, procedures, as well as future leadership, whether that's governance or staff. So if you happen to have any questions about any of those trainings, please let me know. My ultimate goal is that we can begin opening these trainings up to the public, because we all know that our commissioners have a term. We want to begin to train other community members with a better understanding of how public housing works. The other area that I wanted to talk about is the Section 18 application for Parkside, and that's for the demolition and disposition. I think I mentioned to you all before that from the Chicago field office, we have received initial approval. We are waiting for some additional information. One thing in particular that we're waiting on is the fact that typically HUD prefers not to cover the cost of demolition unless redevelopment is involved. And we all know that redevelopment is not going to be a factor when it comes down to the area where Parkside Apartments is located. I've been talking with the state as well as our community development person with the City of Freeport, and we're trying to work out something in terms of once we're able to relocate the residents that the City of Freeport would take ownership of those particular properties when it's time to demolish. But again, we're still in the process of identifying more information, and really this would be related to grant dollars. So again, please be patient with me. We continue to move forward. HUD has been working closely with us, as well as the field office. They have been meeting as well to come up with maybe even some other alternatives. So please, if you have any questions, let me know or give me a call. The last area that I'm gonna touch on is related to our current physical condition assessment. We do have an assessor out that's taken a look at the Westview and Willow apartments. Our ultimate goal is to begin to develop our 5-year capital plan based on specific needs of that particular area. So we know that there's a lot of structural things that need to happen as well as interior things. My greatest hope that is within probably the next 60 days, we will have what's referred to as a RAD physical condition assessment. Now that doesn't mean that we're gonna be a tax credit project. What that means is that that particular assessment will give us in-depth information as to what needs to happen related to critical repairs, cost, and even preventive maintenance. So that's where we are right now, and hopefully, if not the next meeting, the meeting after that, we can share that report with you all. Do you have any questions for me?
Chair,
Counsel? Yes, Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. I wanted to go back to the second item that you mentioned regarding Section 18 application and Parkside, because we haven't really discussed the. If I heard you correctly, you said HUD is, I might be paraphrasing, but HUD's kind of balking at regarding the final approval because it's involving just demolition and not redevelopment. Therefore, you wanted to talk to the city about taking ownership of those units once once all the residents have been relocated.
Yes.
What has been, or either you or Manager Bucus, what is the game plan if we were to entertain that in regards to funding on that?
Well, Babette and I were talking about this the other day, about a week or two ago, and we had not planned on taking possession of these properties and demolishing them. So it's not part of our FEMA grant application that we currently have pending. If we did take possession of these properties, we would have to be, it'd have to be done in another grant application. We have about 147 homes, I believe, we're looking at purchasing, plus businesses, and then this would add to that list.
Follow-up, Chair?
Yes.
All right, so it's the administration wouldn't be bringing this to us for a proposal unless there was some grant funding option it was tied to, and you wouldn't be recommending we take possession of them, but for that type of grant funding, right?
That's correct.
Because okay, enough for tonight on that. Thank you.
Do we have other questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes. Alderman.
Thank you. Good evening, Babette. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being here. One of the questions I had based on that was, what is the realistic timeline looking like for relocating residents?
Once we get an okay related to any potential grant funds, we'll immediately receive the notice for the relocation vouchers. So, I mean, it's not HUD's intention to kind of hold up the process. We're still looking at the possibility of the end of this month, maybe even August. It all depends. And I've actually sent another email to the Illinois Department of Natural Resources as well, just to follow up. But the expectation is that once we receive some type of confirmation of yes or no with a potential partnership with the city with this particular effort, or if HUD comes up with another alternative, then we'll be able to go ahead and move forward. We just have this particular issue, and that letter is pending with the application office now. But again, it is approved, but we just need to figure out what's going to happen with the demolition, since the plan for that particular community and what's going to happen, that it won't be redeveloped.
Thanks. I have some more follow-up questions, Chair.
Yes, Alderman Borneman.
Well, with regards to relocation, what are you anticipating that's going to look like? Is it going to be locally, or is more broad throughout the state?
I think it's going to be more broad throughout the state as well as the country. Now, we will offer the option for, based on availability, if individuals do want to transfer from Parkside to the Westview community. But we're actually looking at, and this is just from phone calls that we received, that a lot of people will probably be moving out of the area and even downstate Illinois or to other states.
And then you mentioned alternatives, and I was just curious, do you have any examples of what you meant by alternatives to either, sounds like relocation or rebuilding?
No, let's see if I understand your question correctly and the statement that I made. The alternatives that I'm referring to is related to any other options that HUD may offer in terms of how we can take care of demolition. Now, and
okay.
if you're referring to the alternative of Westview, yeah, that would be an option based on availability. Please correct me if I misunderstood your question.
No, that sounds right. I just was curious. And then I have another question that's unrelated to what you've covered so far, if that's all right.
Please go ahead.
With regards to the properties throughout the city, do they all have working outdoor lighting, like security lighting and security cameras? And also, where available, are there secured entryways? I know they all don't, that wouldn't work everywhere, but where available, are those working?
Yes, we, even for both amps, even Parkside and Westview, we do have available security cameras throughout the sites. Now, we did have an issue not too long ago where trees fell down, and this is probably in the winter time, and the company had to go like underground to make some repairs. So, but we've already replaced those cameras. So our cameras
Okay,
stay active.
And I apologize, Westview, that's the one located by Sullivan's?
Yes,
Or is that by,
that was
okay,
by
the
Sullivan.
one by, and I should know this, but the one off of Greenfield, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, that's Willow Apartments.
Oh, does Willow have working security cameras and outdoor lighting?
Yes, they have both. And if they're,
Okay.
yeah, and we check them on a regular basis. So if there's been any issues or complaints, we do hope that residents will contact us. But and we do have a regular security guard that tours the sites on a daily basis.
Great. Well, thanks for your answers. That's all I have.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mayor?
you made the comment based on availability at Westview for the Parkside residents. Will they be able to go to the top of that availability list, or is it just everybody on the same level?
That's something I probably will have to follow up with HUD on that, because we have a couple challenges in that area, and that's people who have been on the waiting list for a while, as well as family size and eligibility for a particular unit size. So, but once we find out whether or not a family is interested in transferring from Parkside to Westview, we can start making those arrangements.
Madam Mayor, that was an excellent question. Babette, I have a couple of quick questions for you. We were talking about Parkside has to be demolished, according to the government. We as council did not make that decision. You have not made that decision yourself. That was ordered for us to do that. The public is, a few people have made a few misrepresentations that we have ordered it tore down. And I want them to understand that this is something that is out of our hands, and it's something we have to deal with. As a city council member, I'm hoping the city doesn't have to pay for the demolition, so I think we need to explore all avenues to find out if the federal government can pay for this demolition. My question to you is this. Is there any way to transfer these amps to another locale? I realize that it's a non-buildable lot there, but at one time, Freeport Housing Authority had other lands available to build on. And at one time when they were talking about raising the Westview amps that were sinking in the sand, they'd also talked about building new. Has there been any discussion of this, being able to transfer these amps to another locale in order to keep our amp units up? Because as it looks, we have a low vacancy rate as it is, and we're going to have a large number of tenants that are going to need housing.
Let's see, well, to answer the one question that's related to the units with the sinking foundation, the assessment that we have currently taking place will allow us the opportunity to decide whether or not we can try to build upon that foundation to level it off again, or whether or not we need to put in another application to demolish those 3 apartment buildings, which is 18 units. Now, if we have an option, we would prefer to, maintain those buildings, but right now we won't know until we do the assessment. And I would think the history of the issues with those particular buildings, it has been something that has been ongoing. There was a period of time where it was raised, it was leveled off, but then it began to sink again. Now, the other thing related to, I would say, repositioning strategies.
Yes.
This is why the training that the board will participate in come like the end of September will be important, because it will allow them the opportunity to make decisions related to what would be our next move to ensure that we would continue to provide affordable housing options, whether that would be the possibility of purchasing homes that are vacant with solid foundations and redeveloping in those homes. We just need to get to the point and pass this application where we are right now to begin strategic planning in this particular area. And also related to the vacancy rate, and the vacancy rate has been pretty low in that particular area because of those 18 buildings. Now, those 18 apartments. Once the decision is made about those 18 apartments, we can take those apartments offline. But also, what we're struggling with right now, because we're doing an excellent job in turning the units, we do have a lot of people that are moving out. They're moving upstairs, and again, this is at Westview, and we're trying to turn those apartments as quickly as they move out. The greatest challenge that we have right now is during this pandemic, in keeping the units filled, as well as making certain that people are moving out appropriately. And we have had some issues of abandonment. One of the things that we talked about at our last board meeting is to do whatever we can to make certain that we will avoid contributing to homelessness, because that's the one thing that the federal government is actually looking at right now. Once we get beyond this crisis, we have a lot of people who have lost their jobs, or hours have been cut. They haven't been paying their rent, or they haven't been paying it in full. We're fortunate to have some people who do come in and say, you know, I am short, I like a repayment agreement, and those people we'll be able to work with. But we're going to try to work with everyone in terms of making certain that they don't end up homeless. So it's going to be a bit of a struggle moving forward.
Thank you for your hard work. Council, do we have any other questions for Babette?
Chair?
Yes.
Thank you.
Alderman McClenathan.
Director, you had indicated a few times, I believe, that individuals from Parkside, for the local option, it's only Westview, I believe you said. If that's correct, could you inform us as to what are the factors that limit it to just Westview as a local option?
Oh, and excuse me, when I say Westview, that would be a public housing option. Those individuals who are interested in Section 8 vouchers or using their vouchers in this particular area, they're welcome to do so. That there are Section 8 landlords in this particular area, so forgive me if I misstated that. I was only thinking of those who may be interested in just staying in public housing.
Understood. Thank you. One more.
Yes.
Thank you. Just to be a little clear, because it surprised me, when you had some of your further comments regarding commitments with HUD from the city, when are you needing commitments from the city? What's the timeline for that? And then for Director Bucas, I imagine that is something that would need to be brought before council prior to any commitment on the city behalf. So for you, I guess, what's the timeline that you need from something from the city? And then the second question for Director Bucas.
As soon as possible. That's to be able to move forward as soon as possible.
Yeah, once Babette lets us know, then we'll bring it before council, see what you want to do, and see what kind of grant funding is available.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you, Manager Bucas, for that answer. Council?
Can I jump in with one more question?
Yes,
for
Alderman Borman.
Randy. Whoever feels more comfortable answering it, you both can if you want. The federal government doesn't feel comfortable with a demolition plan if there's not also a redevelopment plan in place. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
She's nodding, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. In this situation, we can't redevelop in this area. Is that something that just needs to be relayed to the federal government and HUD? Or is it going to be, because we're not redeveloping in anywhere in town, they're not going to assist us in this very expensive cost to demolition, unsuitable, housing?
Well, I think the main thing is that because of the plans for that particular side of town, this is why they want us to pursue other options other than HUD dollars to demolish. HUD chooses to invest and reinvest in additional housing. So because the idea is that there will be no redevelopment and homes and businesses are being purchased from that area of town, they're hoping that we can, that you all will take the buildings as is and demolish them once we relocate.
And this property currently is owned by the federal government, is that right?
It's owned by the Housing Authority.
Okay. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Council, any other questions? Ms. Babette, thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate all your input, and we look forward to hearing again from you next month. Moving on, next we have a quarterly presentation on the Greater Freeport Partnership, and this will be presented to us by Mr. Mark Williams, who I just had the pleasure of meeting this evening. Mr. Williams?
Thank you. This is more of an introduction to me. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. Officially this past weekend, I am now a citizen.
Good.
Moved on the hottest day of the year.
Mr. Williams, could I ask you to step up to the mic, please?
Yes.
Maybe turn it up so we have it for public record.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm probably not going to have to repeat that part, but I am now a citizen of Freeport. Thank you. It started May 11th, my position here, so I'm working on 2 months. You should have a quarterly 2 report that you have. I'm certainly not going to read that to you, but in some of my past background, if you don't know, my past 7 years prior to taking a job here, I headed up the City of Rockford's Economic Development Division. So I worked for the City of Rockford, and then prior to that, I was Executive Director for Growth Dimensions for Belvedere Boone County for about 11 years, and Community Development Director prior to that. So I have a lot of experience working with municipal government, and also in the economic development sector. I currently past chair of the Illinois Enterprise Zone Association and current secretary of the Illinois Development Association, Illinois Economic Development Association. So a lot of good networks and connections that I have. So I certainly appreciate this opportunity because I think with the model that we've had through merging the organizations together and working with the City of Freeport as a key partner in that, and I think this is a great model to work forward with and a lot of opportunities that we can take under. My focus a lot, you're going to hear me talk and beef up the economic development focus of our partnership. And essentially, the tourism office is certainly an important area that we're going to continue to work with. But the economic development focus that I bring, and I'm trying to bring that out, so you'll see the reports that come out will have a little bit more of an economic development focus. So in our industrial sector, pretty much has been pretty stable throughout because they pretty much all have been deemed essential businesses. We've had growth in the food sector, the value-added ag sector, especially throughout the county and the city. We're currently working on some projects there. Commercial retail, obviously, has been hit extremely hard in this past quarter. And a lot of our work, the first half of the quarter, was with recovery and getting businesses back up on their feet, whatever program we could find. Offered by the state or the federal government. We were a one-stop shop for that information. We tried to get that information out to the businesses as much as we could. And now we're working in hand to try to get more, a recovery, but reopening businesses. We started a Clean Hands, Open Doors certification process, not a certification, but you get you basically make a pledge as a business to do that, and we certainly hope that the businesses join up and do that as they reopen. And currently also, from our, we're also currently responding to some, certainly some commercial needs. Responded to 5 space inquiries, the City of Freeport, either interested in leasing retail space or purchasing in the downtown. We're also working with some of the big box retail stores and positions looking at either keeping retail operations and or recruiting new retail operations or repurposing some of those spaces for mixed uses. So currently working in that regard on the commercial side. But I do want to, one of my focused areas that I want our staff to focus on, and because coming out of our COVID situation, either your business, we see your business is either discontinuous from what it was before, or continuous improvement going forward. So it may not be the same model of business that you have, but there's also new opportunities for new business startups, and we want to make sure that we have all the tools in place to help new business startups. And that is looking at a economic development ecosystem, entrepreneurial ecosystem in place, something that I had worked on over in the city of Rockford with our, I was co-lead of the Transform Rockford group on their jobs and economy, which had a focus on the ecosystem. And so we want to make sure that we have those that ecosystem in place. Right now we're mapping it out, seeing what we have locally, what we don't have locally. We will see what there is regionally. What there isn't regionally, we'll build that bridge. And then what there isn't regionally, then we'll virtually bring it in. Initially started meeting with the library. It was because the central point of some of these ecosystems are the library, because they're low barrier of entry. They're open late in the hours, and they have full access to a lot of technology that I don't think many of the citizens have a full idea of what really is available at the library system. So we want to make sure that that's available. And within that whole ecosystem is a focused area on minority and women-owned businesses. So a special focus on that. That is what, that hasn't been unrolled. We're trying to build a partnership with that right now, and I certainly want to work on that going down in the future. Working with the city on that, as well as our partners, trying to get that forward. Other than that, we have events already scheduled. We continue to try to do the events. You would know that the cruise night is modified, cruise only, and will be August 15th. Modified Pretzel City Brewfest experience will be experienced and planned for September 26th. This has had some preliminary approval from the health department on how we have it organized. So we will certainly keep you tuned in on that, how we're going forward. And the Music on Chicago events are virtually from all locations throughout downtown Freeport. We also have some works, coordinated efforts on cost share maintenance, seasonal planting in the downtown with city officials. Deininger Floral installed plantings and is providing ongoing watering and weeding throughout the downtown during these summer months. Cost is being shared by the City of Freeport, Greater Freeport Partnership, and Freeport Downtown Events. Project managing the Freeport Reflections. Again, Andrea's Winter is working a lot on this. A vacant storefront window art activation program. Program was scheduled to start in April but postponed due to COVID. And the project was started in June. Artists are installing art in July with a scheduled opening of July 30th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Any questions?
I guess I'll start. I was reading your census report, and you said you provided a census story for the Rolling Stones publication. First, I thought it was Rolling Stones magazine. I got all excited, but I assumed it's a different thing for nursing homes?
I really am not.
You're not familiar with that quote?
Andrea, who worked on that project in the first half of the quarter, but maybe there's Randy, but I know that we had a grant through our R1, and we worked on the census program for the
It was in a local Rolling Stones magazine that the Senior Center publishes.
That's what I thought. I thought it was a senior center publication. And then regarding the Music on Chicago events, you said they're going to be recorded virtually from locations throughout downtown Freeport. I had a few people ask me about this, and I'm not sure exactly what that means. Can you explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, and people can, there'll be a live performance, but it's virtual. So virtually online, you can watch it and join in virtually. I think people do show up, but not as many. You don't have to show up.
And how do they find that? How do they know where it'll be presented?
We will advertise it. There's an online, I'll make sure that you get the information and we can get it out to the public. Make sure that if it's not out there, we'll make sure that it's
Thank you. I appreciate that.
disseminated.
Council, any other questions?
Chair,
Alderman McClanathan.
thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Welcome. And just one thing in regards to your quarter reports, I appreciated the format. It was helpful, so that'll be receptive for down the road. I also appreciated your comments regarding the emphasis, at least from your perspective, on economic development, as I think that a healthy emphasis on that will also help a lot of those other areas that you were referencing through the rest of your reports. Just from my perspective from the city council, I noted that it says you have bi-weekly meetings with the city manager as well as some of the other public partners. And for us to be effective in assisting outside of obviously the financial and then the interactions, I think those interactions are going to be very healthy. And I would just encourage you as you're going down the road and further getting into this position, if the organization is running into situations where it seems like the city can be more beneficial and more helpful, so that we don't run into a situation where you're getting certain opportunities, but we're having a delay, on our end or things of that nature. Just that level of communication, so that it can be the smooth machine that it was envisioned when the organization was set up. So those are some initial thoughts. Again, welcome, and thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Any other questions, council? Thank you very much, Director Williams, and we look forward to working with you. Next on the agenda, we will have a discussion regarding ordinance amending specialty team rates under spiller pay and fire billing. This is something that was given to us in packet format, and we also had a memo. This will be presented to us by Chief Liggett.
Good evening. Little background, the current ordinance permits the fire department to charge for emergency response to hazardous materials. The department has 2 specialty teams, which under certain circumstances can be reimbursed for expenses incurred during the deployment and response. Although we permit these charges, no fees have ever been set. In order to establish a reimbursement methodology for businesses and government agencies we work with, we need to establish a rate structure through the ordinance for consistency in billing and to have a codified reference point for us to justify the charge. Most recently, our response to modern plating permitted us to recoup the cost of our response. The company wanted to see our rate structure we established. We had no rate structure, so we utilized the FEMA rate structure system. The FEMA rate structure did not cover our costs, typically for those types of responses, because they're a national average per se, and don't necessarily reflect the costs that we have here in Freeport. So this ordinance is necessary to establish that rate structure to be more commensurate with our cost of service. We're recommending this rate structure for our personnel and equipment. These charges will only be levied if the charge is permitted by law, 1. 2, the response is reimbursable under a mutual aid agreement with another community, or 3, we're eligible for reimbursement under a declaration of emergency. So, the rate structure is based on levels of response. So there's awareness level, operations level, and technician level, and command level. As you can see in the document, there are definitions for each one of those. I won't recite them for the benefit of time, but I provided with you an idea of the service level provided for each of those. Under the rate structure itself, we've defined an hourly rate for each of those particular certification levels. And then we've also provided a rate structure for vehicles and equipment. Each of those is an hourly rate. These are commensurate with the FEMA rates, and they are, it's the FEMA rate plus 10%, was it, Scott? 10%. And that gets us close to where our actual costs are when we provide this service. In addition to these hourly rates, also every time we have a disposable, use something disposable like a chemical suit or ropes or something that has to be tossed after we use it, we can also get reimbursed for those materials and equipment. There's no additional funding need for this project. There's going to be minimal impact to the taxpayer here in the city, other than it will give us the opportunity for revenue when we are deployed on some of these complicated responses. So if you don't have any questions, or I'd be entertaining any questions you have right now.
Council questions?
Chair,
Alderman McClanathan.
thank you. The current ordinance allows you to, it says to charge for, and just to quote, any expense. And now you're kind of codifying the breakdown of the expenses. In most situations, you already were charging something close to these fees in regards to the ones you broke down? Is
Yes.
that correct?
When this has happened before, we didn't really have anything to rely upon and referred to FEMA fees that existed out there. Again, we wanted to have something that we could utilize. When we do a FEMA reimbursement, we either use fees that we've established within our own ordinance, or we have to use their reimbursement rates. Having it codified here will increase what we can receive from FEMA or IEMA when we deploy these teams.
Follow-up, Chair?
Yes.
And you said the FEMA reimbursement rate was slightly below our actual costs, therefore you incorporate,
Yes.
these rates incorporate FEMA plus 10%?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Chair.
Yes, Alderman Ross.
Yes, Fire Chief. That last hazardous spill we had, were you able to charge on that one?
We used actually these rates for that particular charge.
And how did it work out?
No, it worked out fine.
Okay.
Yeah. We started, the rates that we provided them with a bill for service that they came back to us asking for justification. And because they wanted to see what we had codified in our ordinance. So actually, that was the driving factor in bringing this forward, was the request from Modern Plating to have some kind of rate structure established. And in consulting with them, consulting with our FEMA partners, consulting with other teams in the state, this is the information that we brought up.
Thank you.
And Chief, I asked this question the last time, but I just want to reiterate it one more time. This is not creating any hardship on the firemen. They don't have to relearn anything, including billing practices. This is all going to be done by a separate billing company if the council pushes it forward.
Actually, this is done by our team in-house. We work with our specialty team leaders and my administrative team, Scott Townsend, my administrative assistant, Dee Scudder. When we have a reimbursement like this, there's paperwork that we have to fill out for the state and for the federal government to seek these reimbursements. So that's who does that work, this particular work. This doesn't go through our billing company because we would end up paying them their percentage for that particular piece. We're already only getting, through FEMA, 75% reimbursement rate, through the state, whatever they're offering. So we don't want to lose any more of that revenue than we have to in those situations.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, council?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Alderman Busker.
Yes, Chief, with this, you guys already purchased the equipment and a lot of that can go expired before you ever even have a chance to use it. Will this help offset some of that as well?
It depends on the flow of revenue, the number of incidents, that sort of stuff. If we're turning over equipment on a regular basis, obviously that would extend the life of, because we're getting new equipment in the trailer, we won't necessarily be tossing expired equipment. So yes, that could help, but it's a roll of the dice as to when we have an incident the size of Modern Plating. They're few and far between.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I make a motion to move this forward to the next business meeting.
Thank you, Alderman Busker.
Second.
We have a first by Alderman Busker, and we have a second by Alderman Ross to move this to the next regularly scheduled council meeting, which will be July 20th.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? Thank you very much, Chief. We appreciate your presentation. Moving on,
Council says that we need to do a vote on that.
we have to have a vote to move it forward.
Traditionally, we have had a vote to move from COW to an agenda. Then once we're at council agenda, a motion and a second is all that's needed to take it to second reading.
Thank you, Attorney Zito. Okay, change of plans. We're going to have to go to a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, can you take that for us, please?
Brashaw,
Aye.
Meissick,
Aye.
Berbere,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
McLanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Wonderful. Next, we will have the discussion of resolution. This is a resolution approving the redevelopment agreement with Winter and Associates for parking lot improvements at Meadows Mall. This will be presented by Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. City staff has been working with Doug Winter of Winter and Associates on a plan to try to keep the J.C. Penney store open here in Freeport. Currently, Penny's is having a closeout sale, but they have not listed this property in Freeport as part of their bankruptcy proceedings. Under the proposed redevelopment agreement, Winters will be required to make $270,000 of improvements to this property. These improvements include the parking lot, drive lanes, and interior-exterior improvements requested by J.C. Penney. In return for these improvements, the city will reimburse Winter $4,000 per month for 30 months for a total payback of $120,000. These funds to pay the expenses will come from the Meadows Tax Increment Financing District and adjoining TIF districts. Should Penny's close their store for 3 consecutive months or relocate their store to another location within 4 years, the payments will cease to be paid. And although the payments are for 2.5 years and we have a 4-year provision in here, is the fact that they will, Winters may not be able to start his project right away. So it's the 30 months will start after the first project is completed. So that's how that's why we have a 4-year commitment in there. Penny still has a 4-year lease on their property. But then in 2.5 years, if their sales fall below a certain threshold, they have a right to terminate the lease. So staff's requesting that the City Council forward this redevelopment agreement to the July 20th, 2020 City Council meeting for a possible action.
Thank you, Manager Bucus. Council, do we have questions for him? I guess I had a question for you. I don't know if you remember what I was thinking here. Sorry. This RDA, is this between J.C. Penney's and them, or is it the RDA between the city and Winters and J.C. Penney's?
It's between the city and Winters.
Okay. And so all funding mechanism to pay Winters back for this redevelopment would come from the TIF money, the Meadows TIF increment financing?
Yes, and if it
Correct.
does not generate enough, then we'll have to take it from one of the other adjoining TIFs.
From the adjoining, okay. So we do have funding to cover this.
Yes.
All right. Council, do we have a motion to move this forward?
Chair,
Yes.
I have some questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
No,
you
it's
were-
all right. I could do it after the motion too, but
Mhm.
what communication, representation, guarantees, anything do we have from Penny's that Penny's is invested in this type of arrangement?
The city has no guarantees that Penny's will stay. Likewise, if Penny's does not stay, then no payments will be made.
Follow, Chair?
Yes.
Penny's has not made any requested interior improvements at this time, so right now we're talking about just parking lot and drive lane exterior improvements?
That's my understanding. They have not made any direct requests for interior improvements.
And we've rejected prior requests, not at the council level, but at the administrative level. Recently, we've rejected prior requests for redevelopments that only involved exterior parking spaces or parking lots, haven't we?
That's correct.
What outside of the, and the prior, those other prior requests involved entities that had buildings that were filled with tenants, correct?
That's correct.
What differentiates this from those circumstances?
Well, first, this is a major retailer that generates sales tax to us. The other mall that was asking for parking lot improvements was mostly service-oriented. We also are working with a developer on the old Kmart building, and one of the tenants that they're looking at is looking at whether Penny's is going to stay or not. That they feel this is kind of a marginal area because of our size, and if Penny stays, it's more likely they will proceed. If Penny's leaves, we don't know whether they'll proceed or not.
Follow-up, Chair?
Yes.
How are these parking lot improvements going to help incentivize pennies to stay?
It's the way they're structuring the rent on the property.
Anything further, Alderman?
Chair,
Yes, Alderman Borneman.
Mr. Bucus, when we say parking lot, we mean the entire Meadows parking lot from Kmart all the way down to JCPenney?
That's the definition we're using right now, but actually they've done some major work a couple years ago with their parking lot. This would be the back parking lot and then the drive lanes that connect the front of stores and the main two shopping centers.
And you said that the interior renovations are unknown at this point?
That's correct.
Thanks.
Chair,
Yes, Alderman McClanathan.
I'll note in my mind, I guess the saving grace on this from the city's end is that if they do close their month for 3 months, or close their store for 3 months, or relocate to another location, the payments would cease. I mean, I think that while I think the nexus as it currently exists is pretty tenuous, that does give us a backstop on our end. That does probably be a bit of a comfort.
And Manager Bucus, without naming names, I understand that if JCPenney's would pull out, that there's another business that would shortly follow in that area. Is that correct?
There is another business that is tied in with the JCPenney lease that if JCPenney's lease, they have the right to leave as well.
So we'd be losing 2 tax-paying bodies.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Madam Mayor?
Manager Bucus, in this discussion part of it, you have written that Winters is required to make $270,000 worth of improvements to that property. Do they have to spend the $150,000 first before the $120 from TIF kicks in?
I think I'll refer that to the attorney.
So the way that this RDA is structured is that this is a reimbursement, so he'll have to put in all the improvements first before he gets any reimbursement from the city. So we're not putting up any upfront cash to help him pay for the cost of the project. He's got to fund the project 100%, and then he gets reimbursement on the back end.
Thank you, Counselor. I'm asking the council body one more time if we have any more questions.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Alderman Misick.
So thank you for presenting and bringing this forward. As I understand, in the past when this was looked into, there was some concern with like the funding being available and so forth, or like the dollar amount, Manager Beekes?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Sure. So under the direction where we're going, it sounds as though now we have like a dollar figure, the TIF funding being in place to support this at an appropriate level. So I'm just sharing here, I feel very comfortable that with this adjustment, as it's laid out, this is a very good use of TIF to keep us moving in this area of town, which is really critical for Freeport. So thank you for putting this together with the new numbers.
Okay, Council, before you is a structural plan to retain business in the form of this resolution. Again, I'm going to ask, does anyone want to make a motion to move it forward?
Chair,
Yes, Alderman Borneman.
I'm going to make ask one more question.
Sure, no problem.
And I'd like to point this out because we're talking about finances, and we have places in town that we only have so many resources. This funding can only be used for specific things because we're talking about TIF dollars, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not talking about taking money from a neighborhood and putting it into a business. That's fair to say, right?
No. Sorry,
Okay.
I'll let you answer.
No, you're correct.
With that,
This money
What's
has
that?
to be used in the TIF district. It cannot be used anyplace else, so it has to be used for TIF improvements.
Did you hear that, Alderman Borneman?
I did. With that, I don't know if somebody already had, but I'd make a motion to move this onto the next regularly scheduled council meeting.
We have a first, we have a second.
So, second.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Alderman Borneman to move this forward to the next council meeting and a second by Alderman Misick. I guess we have to take a vote on this, correct? Madam Clerk?
Misick,
Aye.
I don't know why I didn't start with Brescia.
That's fine.
That's okay.
Brescia.
Aye.
Berbere.
Aye.
Borneman.
Aye.
McLanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Here, aye.
Parker.
Aye.
And Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Discussion regarding reduction in rent for Heritage Aero Lease at the airport. This is presented by Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The city recruited Heritage Aero to Freeport Airport back in 2018. Heritage signed a 10-year lease for 4 hangars with a monthly rent of $2,305 per month. In addition, they were renting a 5th hangar on a monthly basis until the COVID-19 pandemic hit us. With the pandemic, Heritage Aero was about to close their doors until we negotiated a 0 rent for them for 3 months, but they did have to lay off 4 of their 6 employees. Since April, the company has been staffed by their 2 owners and 2 employees, and they are cautiously optimistic that enough business is coming through the doors to support the business with a smaller crew. The place has been quiet, new business is slow to come in, and their income is down, but the repeat business they receive from loyal customers has been positive on their cash flow. Heritage Aero is requesting a reduction in the rent for 1 year to help them with their turnaround. They're requesting an amendment to their lease for 1 year from their rent from $2,305 to $1,150 per month. This company is a small business that not only relocated their business here, but their personal lives to Freeport as well. They are a unique airplane restoration company with potential to grow again. And staff requests that the City Council approve the request of Heritage Aero Inc. to reduce their monthly hangar fees from $2,305 per month to $1,150 per month for 12 months, being August 2020 through July 2021. And prior to Heritage coming to the Freeport, these hangars were vacant.
Thank you, Manager Bucus. I have a question for you. I'm not saying I'm opposed to this or anything, but do we look at them, at their financials, or know that they actually experience an actual hardship? I know a lot of businesses have qualified for these SBA loans, the forgivable loans from the government if they are small business, based on how many employees they have, and or they can actually receive funds to pay those salaries. So do we know if they've received any government funds? Can we ask that question or not?
I did not ask that question. I'll let them know.
Okay. Do we ask for their financials to show that they're actually experiencing hardship?
In this case, we did not.
What is common practice in a situation like this to reduce the rent? Do we ever ask about those hardships? Are we allowed to do that?
We are, and we have, and we did in this case, but we did not ask for financials.
So we just got a verbal from them at this time.
That's correct.
Councilor?
They were,
Madam Chair.
they were
Yes, Madam Mayor?
Mark, do you have insight into this I know you work a lot with small businesses and all of those fundings. Do you have an answer to that? I have not worked on this project. Not that one? Okay.
So the person asked, said that he does not have any information for the listening public. Council, do we have any other questions at this time?
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Alderman.
Just an observation. I would note that, as Manager Bucus indicated at the end of his comments, these hangars had been vacant for quite a period of time. I think probably it actually predates your time with the city. I think that they've been vacant,
Yes.
not informed as Manager Bucus, but as Finance Director. I guess this is a question, but Director Bucus, this is the only business that we have renting hangars out at the airports, and the rest of the rentals are of recreational use. Is that correct?
There may be some airplanes out there that are used for business, but this is the only, other than Daryl Jensen, this is the only business that's actually operating at the airport.
And they what are they? They're greater than 1, but less than 2 years into this lease at this time?
Yes.
Okay. And they celebrated, I don't know, it was around sometime in the winter or something like that, or the fall, they celebrated their 1 year of operations out there, correct?
Yes, it was cold outside, I remember that.
Yeah, that's right. And they're not asking for a reduction for the remainder, or maybe the 8 years of the loan, or the lease. They're just looking for a 1 year reduction while they continue to transition through this period.
That's correct.
Do we have any other businesses that we rent to, or that of a similar situation that we're dealing with here in the city that you're aware of?
No, the only other, we have farm leases, but that's
Sure.
probably the closest thing we come to any type of lease or payment agreement.
Chair?
Yes,
Thank you. The amount that we're talking about here is in the overall scheme of what we're looking at on budgetaries, I think is pretty minimal. I think the value that's been added to the community by this business greatly exceeds that amount that we've had here. We were aware months ago that there were some layoffs in regards to this. This wasn't a new situation on that. I think from a cost-benefit analysis situation, this is something that would benefit the city significantly more than it would be a detriment to the city over the 12-month period. So I'd make a motion to move this forward to the next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Second.
Chair, can I ask one question, please?
yes.
Manager Bucus, that's about $14,000 for a year. Is that rent money used to cover any expenses or operational costs there that we pay for, or is that just pure rent?
The rent goes towards the airport operation, goes into our general fund,
Okay.
and then, of course, our general fund funds everything. But, so it goes in our general fund, and of course, we have to maintain the airport.
So we are responsible for other costs down at the airport?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Thank
And
you.
one thing I'll mention too is that when they came to Freeport, we did see an increase in fuel sales because of the business that they were bringing in. So we get a small portion of those fuel sales as well.
Thank you.
Did that answer all your questions?
Yes, it did.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, before you, council, we have a first made by Alderman McClanathan and a second by Parker to move this forward to the next regularly scheduled council meeting, July 20th. And Madam Clerk, will you take roll call?
Brashaw,
Aye.
Misick,
Aye.
Berberay,
Aye?
Borneman,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now this is the fun part. Just kidding. We're moving on to item number 12, discussion of the amended FY 2020 budget. Manager Buca sent us a copy of the changes and a long memo. So I guess, Manager Bucas, we're ready for you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. With the spreading of the coronavirus in late March, we had seen our revenue stream decrease as businesses and services were closed. Early projections show we will have to cut our general fund expenditures between $1.5 and $1.7 million. With the cooperation of city staff and one-time revenue sources, we were able to amend and balance the budget. The amended budget proposes that a number of vacant positions not be filled for the remainder of this year. These positions include the communications director, the deputy finance director, 2 firefighter positions, 7 police officer positions, a water sewer construction worker, and 3 positions at the library. In addition, we combined the community development director's position with the assistant to the city manager's position, and we have 1 person in the street department that's currently on military leave that we're not paying that salary at this time. We are also expecting 1 administrative position in the fire department to become vacant due to a retirement that will not be filled, and we are also expecting 1, if not 2 positions in the police department to become open due to retirements that will be filled. The Illinois Commission on Government Reform and Accountability, which is the fiscal arm of the General Assembly, stated that the state funds ending the fiscal year, which would be June 30th, 2020, were down $1.1 billion from last year. Most of the drop-off in revenue occurred from April through June. As of June 30th, income tax collections were down $756 million. And sales tax were also down as well. We used this information plus information from the Illinois Municipal League to try to put together what kind of projections we may be looking at. So looking at our revenue sources, food and beverage taxes, I'm projecting receiving about $378,000 this year, or about 56% of what was originally budgeted. For the months of March and April, we did not receive any income, which totaled almost $120,000 loss. We also had a number of restaurants that have closed and have not reopened, one that burned down and another one that was sold. So we are projecting less revenue from these establishments from this source. Also, the electric and natural gas taxes were projected to be lower as well because businesses were closed and usage was down. I did reduce the income tax income tax revenues by 3% based on funds we have received to date. The Illinois Municipal League is projecting a 10% decrease in income tax revenue. I believe the high unemployment rate that we've seen will not affect us until 2021, when the workers that were laid off, furloughed, or had their hours reduced start filing their income taxes for next year. The state sales tax, I am estimating a $455,000 reduction, and a local home rule sales tax about a $410,000 decrease of what was originally budgeted. We will not know the April sales tax until probably the next couple of days. This will give us an indication of what we can expect. From my general observation, and with the small retailers and clothing stores being closed, Walmart and Menards picked up additional business. I am predicting that by the end of November, monthly sales tax collections will be back at about 95% of what we anticipated. One bright spot is that use tax receipts. With businesses being closed, people shopped online and paid the use tax. I'm projecting that $57,000 more in revenue than was originally budgeted will occur in the use tax receipts. We have also worked with the Stevenson County 911 Board on an intergovernmental agreement that will increase the board's contribution to the city by $329,000. This is a one-time contribution. I'm expecting a 31% decline in video gaming revenues as machines have been closed for 3 months. I'm also projecting fines and tickets at 67% as we took a very passive traffic enforcement approach, and the courts have been closed and are now just reopening. A major change in the transfer of revenue for the Fire Capital Improvement Fund helped balance the budget and helped preserve some layoffs. We originally budgeted a $530,000 transfer from this fund to the general fund. The new transfer amount is $875,000, or $346 one-time increase. The short-term fix will have to be addressed by the 2021 budget process. Overall, the total general fund revenue is at $18,435,175. Most of the city departments were able to reduce their budgets by 10%. Most of the big decreases came from not filling these vacant positions I talked about earlier. To give you a quick glance at the department budget, and without going line by line, the major decreases came from the following. The manager mayor's office had a 16% decrease, or $49,000. Finance reduced their budget by 33%. Government buildings by 27%. The street department reduced their budget by $116,000. Forestry by 31%, or almost $100,000. Police, $627,000. Fire, $94,000. And our management information systems by another $27,000. However, some of the areas we had to increase the budget because of costs that we have been incurring. Legal had to be increased by 55%, public works by 11%, streetlights by 6%, hearing administration by almost $4,000, and intergovernmental by about $30,000. With respect to other funds, the TIF, the tax increment financing districts, are all showing a positive or zero balance except for the Lamb Road TIF. We are using fund balances to balance this account, since the change in fiscal year has us making 2 intergovernmental payments to the county this year versus 1. Police and fire pension funds are subject to the changes in the investment market. At the time of this draft, both funds were close to making up their losses for March and April. Only time will tell whether they come out balanced or not. With respect to the utility funds, the water, sewer, and storm funds all have positive balances, and both revenues and expenditures have been reduced. The library is showing a positive balance at the end of the year of about $37,000 after their cuts. Their cash flow challenge will start at fiscal year 2021. Our grant budgets are where we expect them to be. Some show a positive year-end balance, some a negative, and others a zero balance. A lot depends on when revenues are received and when the expenditures take place. They are not a concern at this time. We also added a new category, Rebuild Illinois, in the motor fuel tax revenues account. We anticipate receiving a payment of $281,000 from the state this year. This will be the first of 6 payments we expect over the next 3 years. We eliminated $72,000 from the motor fuel tax budget for ash tree removal, as we are expecting our normal MFT payments to be declined due to less people driving for 3 months. The landfill closure fund is projected to have a $16,000 deficit, and we are projecting less rent this year as the transfer station contract will expire. The health and environmental fund is projected to have a deficit of $17,000. This fund pays for our refuse collection and property taxes at the transfer station. The general fund traditionally has made up this difference, and it is budgeted in the general fund. Our tourism promotion fund is projected to decrease by about $50,000 as hotel motel taxes are currently at about 50% from last year, and one hotel management company has filed for bankruptcy, and we do not know what the outcome of this filing will be. This is just a brief summary of the revisions to the fiscal year 2020 budgets. If council agrees with the revisions, this item can be placed on the July 20th, 2020 council agenda for first reading. Staff will continue to monitor and review both revenue expenditures, and as usual, at the end of the fiscal year, in this case, come December, we'll be also proposing a budget amendment.
Wow. Council, do we have questions for Manager Bucas on this?
Sure.
Yes, Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. So the personnel impact is currently from positions that are, as of now, unfilled, that would remain unfilled. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You're not proposing additional personnel cuts outside of those already unfilled positions?
That's correct.
And that totals, I think, 17 positions you listed?
Yes.
All right, and on 17 positions, about what percent is that of our personnel workforce overall?
We have 192 employees, so
Little south of 10% there. All right. Well, and some of these budget fixes that make it work and balance it out right now, you said at least $675,000 of those are just one-time fixes, one from the fire transfer and one from the 911 board, correct?
that's correct.
And if we're making this, if we're making this adjustment from the fire transfer fund or fire improvement fund there, the long-term trade-off on that is decreased funds for the large capital assets that we purchase down the road. The more we put towards the general fund to maintain personnel levels, the less we have put away for those large capital assets that are coming down the road, correct?
That's correct.
Do you anticipate that $346,000 adjustment to be a one-year, COVID emergency basically adjustment?
Yes.
Is it sustainable to maintain that level of transfer ratio?
Well, currently, I think we're at 58-42 on that transfer fund.
Is it sustainable to keep it at the level that you proposed here for more than 1 year, though?
I believe so.
I'm sorry, what I mean is it sustainable to the assets, to the capital asset side, to continue to have a ratio? If you were to go next year, if we get down to the fall here where we're doing our next year's budget, and you say, well, we're going to do another 346 out of balance on that, at some point, we're not going to have the assets to replace those capital assets. Is that correct?
That's correct. We would have to do something different.
I would note you're using a lot of the assumptions based on actual numbers received as well as projections from our state sources. Is that correct?
That's correct. Unfortunately, the state, on a lot of the revenues that we get have a 2-month lag. So the numbers that we'll be getting in the next couple of days, like for sales tax, will actually be for April. And April was a full month of the COVID-19 pandemic where everything was closed. So that will give us kind of an idea of what direction sales taxes may go.
Follow-up?
Yes.
Well, what are some of the choices? I mean, this will get us, as proposed, this will get us through the rest of this budget year, but what are some of the hard choices we might be having to make at our next, well, not too long down the road, less than 6
Right.
months down the road here?
Yeah, we'll be starting the fiscal year 2021 budget probably in August, definitely September, late August, early September. And if revenues don't increase, well, some of these temporary layoffs will be permanent, or temporary vacancies will be permanent. And we'll have to look at our priorities, where we want to spend our money, what type of personnel we want to have, what kind of services we want to provide.
Follow-up, Chair?
Yes.
Along that line there, this will give us at least a period of time where we can reassess over the next few months to make sure that our assumptions meet the reality of for better or for worse, of the actual figures coming in, and we can adjust accordingly for our next year's budget based on that.
Mm-hmm. That's the plan.
Yeah, I guess just one comment. We talked about this even going back into April. I don't know, once we hit the shutdown. It was mentioned there'd be 3 phases to this. One was the immediate phase where the people were getting laid off initially. The second phase was those who were having reduced hours, and then we said this day was coming in regards to you can't have those 2 things happening and not seeing the significant impact on our revenues. And there was a national publication article today in regards to municipal budgets nationwide. So this is not we're not in a unique situation here. I think, especially, well, he usually sits over there, but especially looking at with the police chief in regards to the 7 positions, that's how they're currently operating, but that's also one of the scariest ones. But frankly, I don't see how you derive a balanced budget for the rest of the year without making the steps that you've taken. And frankly, I'm surprised that you're able to achieve those with just not filling current vacancies and maintaining the staffing level as it is today. I think you'd be commended for at least making those steps there.
Well, thank you, but I have to give credit to my department heads, because they really looked hard at their budgets and took out anything that we could defer for another year or whatever. And then, like I said, having 2 one-time revenue sources helped as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Manager Bucus cutting 1.5 to 1.7 million from a budget that I feel like we're strapped anyhow is just, it's overwhelming. And I do also appreciate your talents in trying to figure out how to do this. I feel horrible about these positions lost. I mean, I know that the staff has worked hard and a lot of them are overworked. I don't know where we're supposed to come up with this revenue as a council. I mean, our hands are tied too. We do appreciate your leadership skills and helping us look at this from a very practical standpoint, even though we know it's going to hurt everyone in the long run. And we were looking at next year's budget thinking we have a very much increased expense load next year, and how are we going to make cuts to get by that? And so, like the other cities and the other states in America and the other countries, everyone's making cuts and trying to figure out how to make do with less, a lot less. Thank you. Anyone else?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Alderman Borneman.
Thank you. Manager Bucus, one of the things we were looking at prior to the pandemic was potential increased income or revenue from cannabis sales. What's the status of that being implemented throughout the areas that it hasn't reached yet, like ours?
Right now, in our proposed budget that I've revised, I do include $18,000 in cannabis sales, or excuse me, $16,000 in sales that the state gives out on a per capita basis. The licenses for dispensaries right now have been suspended again, so we're hoping that we'll get at least one dispensary here, but we don't know when that's going to happen. And we did levy a tax on those sales as well. So that'd be additional income that is not in my projections.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Alderman Borman, does that answer your question? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Anybody else?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Alderman.
Thank you. Manager Bucus, notice one of the line items for expenses is outside legal counsel, going from about $35,000 to $150,000 budgeted. Is that an absolute number, or is that based on various projects and various issues and lawsuits? Is that flexible? Can that be controlled? Huge increase, or else it was under budgeted last year?
Right.
Looking at page 3, legal expenses went up by 55%.
Yeah, I'm looking for the actual budget itself.
As part of your memo.
We were looking at outside consulting going up 30,000, and then labor, we're looking at a sizable increase from what we originally budgeted.
Okay, so it's not just legal, it's also consultancy.
Right, because we have some issues going on, and we still have one contract we're trying to negotiate with one of the unions.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other council questions for,
Quick follow-up?
yes?
I also noticed there's something called contracted building repairs went from $875,000 to $58,000, plus in equipment repairs from $57,400 down to zero. Is that just a reclassification of various expenses?
What are you looking? What budget are you looking at?
I think it's under general ledger someplace. I just made some notes on them. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, give me that information again, and I'll.
Contracted building repairs from $875 to $58,400. And then equipment repairs, which is the line right below it, from $57,400 to zero. So I don't know if it's a reclassification. It sounds like they're almost interchangeable because the numbers are so similar.
Yeah, I believe that's under our building maintenance budget. That, I think sometimes it depends on how the bills are coded.
Okay.
Because I remember seeing that when I was doing it, I remember seeing that and saying the same thing that you're asking at this time.
While he looks that up, council, it does help to have a line item number or a page number for him to look it up next time.
Thanks.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Alderman Busker, while he's looking that up.
I think Finance Director there, looks like she has a book open. I don't know if she might have the answer on that.
Michelle Reichter?
Yeah, flip-flop.
Flip-flop. Okay.
So the answer to that question was those line items were flip-flopped, is that correct?
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you very much.
Do you have any other questions?
I do not.
Anyone else?
Chair,
Yes.
do you know, Director, what our current unemployment rate is in Freeport?
In Freeport, I do not.
Okay.
Good council, before you is that amended FY 2020 budget, and I believe we're going to need a motion to move this forward to the next council meeting, is that correct?
Yes.
Counselor? Yes. Do we have any motion, any such motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Alderman Misick and a second by Alderman Burberry, and I keep fudging on your name because you're sitting in a different spot. I'm not used to looking my right for that voice.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just one more question for clarification. The transfer from the fire capital account is just for 1 year, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, the 1 year increase, because normally we do a 52-48 or
58-42.
58-42 split.
To answer your question?
Yes.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Alderman Misick.
So looking through each of these individual sections, it looks as though, as Manager Bucas mentioned, it appears that each of the departments really took some strides to make improvements to their budgets. Very, very difficult to do, yet very necessary in our current headwinds financially. So I really would like to commend the department heads who have worked so hard on this, and look forward to seeing, I think, some further clarifications perhaps as we review all these materials. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Meisak. We have a motion to move this forward to the next scheduled council meeting. We have a first and a second. Madam Clerk, will you take roll call, please?
Brashaw,
Aye.
Meisak,
Aye.
Berbere,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Next, we have discussion of a food and fellowship at 709 South Liberty Avenue, which will be on July 22nd, 2020, presented by Manager Bucas.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to bring to your attention that we're proposing to have a social in the neighborhoods, and this one is being proposed over at our old police substation at 709 South Liberty, as you stated, on July 22nd from 5 to 6:30 p.m. It's basically a chance for the community to come out and meet me as a new city manager, and then we also have Michelle as our new finance director, Kirsten as our new community development director, and Rob as our new public works director, to have a chance to come out and meet and have a little talk and a little discussion with them. We will abide by 6-foot social distancing, and but we will have hot dogs and chips to give away to the first 200 people that show up.
Thank you, Manager Bucas. And I understand that this food will be prepared by the Salvation Army to meet all food code restrictions.
Yes, and I believe it's going to be individually packaged and wrapped.
Is it bring your own beverage?
Well, I haven't talked to the mayor about this yet, but she would like for us to provide water or provide something to drink, and I'm kind of against it because now we have to have somebody handle it.
Right. I just wanted to know if I had to try to choke down a dry hot dog there or
Yeah.
chips.
Well, there will be condiments with it, so you could put a lot of ketchup or mustard on it.
Oh, thank you. Council, do we have any questions for Manager Bucas?
Chair,
Yes, Alderman Borneman.
is this an outdoor event, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And it sounds like up to 200 people will be food for up to 200 people?
Well, we're cooking 200 hot dogs. Whether 50 people show up, then everybody's going to have to eat a lot of hot dogs. And if 300 people show up, somebody's going to have to split their hot dog. But we also will have some picnic tables for people to sit down as well.
Okay. Thank you.
No, this is not an action item. We don't have to do anything with this.
No, it's just
correct?
basically free information.
Okay. Anyone else have questions? If not, we're moving on to item number 14, public comments. Is this something that they have to be signed up for on the end of the meeting? No. So do we have any public members that would like to speak? Please stand up to the microphone. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name, please.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Austin Anderson, and I am an insurance adjuster. One of the things I do is take people's statements after they've been in an auto accident. I also interpret for our special investigations unit when we have to investigate if a claim is fraudulent or not. My question is, if I had to go and meet someone as part of my job as an investigator, should I bring a loaded pistol, pepper spray, a taser, and shackles? Should I be able to call in trained attack dogs or a mine-resistant troop carrier full of soldiers with M16s, just to figure out who is liable and if they have a valid driver's license and an active insurance policy? If your answer is no, I encourage you to think about why we're sending police officers armed with all of that to the scene of an accident, and to consider other possible approaches, maybe send an arbiter instead. Next, I want you to think about a close friend or family member that has had some struggles with mental illness or substance abuse. Got someone in mind? Okay. Say you're out of town and you notice they do something out of character that worries you and they're not answering their phone. So you call the non-emergency line and ask for a wellness check just to make sure they're okay. The responding officer arrives, and remember, your friend isn't in a great mental place already. They might think they're in trouble. Maybe they just hear the banging on the door and think someone's breaking into their house, and they panic. The officer ends up killing them. My question is, when the news spreads, would anyone in this country be surprised? I know it wouldn't surprise the Tatiana Jefferson's family. Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., James Allen, Douglas Harris, Travis Jordan. The person you thought of would join this list that just keeps going while the officers walk free and continue working. Why can't we send mental health professionals to respond to mental health crises? With the war on drugs, police were put in charge of substance abuse issues. How many people have died of an overdose in Freeport because the responding officers took them to the jail instead of a hospital? It's multiple. And it's easy to blame the person that overdosed. To that, I wonder if you know anyone with chronic back pain or that had major surgery that can't sleep at night and nothing helps, except for their opiate pain medication. Every year, our police force resembles our military more and more with the 1033 program. On May 31st, members of our community gathered downtown to say, "Stop killing black people." The police showed up with all their weapons and vehicles of war and violence. The way I see it, the community said, "Stop killing black people," and with their actions, the police force said no. On June 6th, the community gathered again, peacefully like y'all asked, to say, "Stop killing and oppressing black people." And with your words, y'all asked how. The police have become a one-stop shop for many different fields, and it's near impossible for them to be a subject matter expert on all of them. I encourage you to re-examine which situations require an armed agent of the state and to work with your community to see what separate entities could be created to handle the rest. If you're wondering where the funding is going to come from, the roughly $7 million Freeport PD budget may be more flexible if they're able to focus on issues that can be solved by arresting, finding, and imprisoning members of our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do we have any other public members that would like to speak tonight? Name, please, in 3 minutes.
Hi. My name is Allie Starkowitz. I moved to Freeport from the Chicago suburbs 2 years ago. I've been getting more involved in light of current events, and I've been trying to trust you and have faith in your response. But after hearing a few members of the Social Justice Committee voice their concern last Thursday, I realized that I've been naive. The last I've heard about moving forward was that you are listening and learning, which I've heard is becoming about as effective as thoughts and prayers are in the wake of a shooting. Listening and learning has not changed anything. I'm still scared. I'm scared for your constituents. Are you? If you are someone who considers themselves to be a person of honor and you truly believe that you take your job seriously and that it's your duty to do the right thing, I implore you to please look inside yourself and ask yourself if you really believe that you're doing enough. If a white person is driving erratically and an officer pulls them over, is the officer going to reassure them by saying, "But you're not black. Remember, we only shoot black people," and get put on administrative duty like in Atlanta, Georgia? If a rogue white supremacist accelerates his vehicle to hit and kill a peaceful protester like Robert Forbes, will the Freeport Police Department have a cigarette with him and let him walk away like in Bakersfield, California? If a black man who works for the Freeport School District and feeds children in the cafeteria like Philando Castile is out for a drive with their family and happens to have a brake light out, is he going to be killed in front of his family like in St. Paul, Minnesota? I teach choir. I teach young musicians. If one of my students, a black boy like Elijah McClain, is walking home and is dancing to the music he's listening to, are the Freeport police going to choke him till he's unconscious and inject him with horse tranquilizer, then mock the situation later with a photo? If your response is, "Not Freeport, that wouldn't happen here," what makes you so sure? Where is the legislative proof that it will not happen? Where is the proof that all of your constituents are safe from proverbial bad apples, or the white supremacists that have been empowered to be louder and bolder by the current president and the inaction of local governments? Why do you have to wait for another death to respond? If you're overwhelmed, then Pat Sellers' justice plan seems like a great place to start. Or the least you could do is formally and publicly, as a governing body, denounce white supremacy like you were challenged to do during public comment a couple of weeks ago. Tell the world that Freeport will be different and that you are actively taking measures to improve the systemic treatment of black people in this community, and then act on that statement. Please prove to me that you hold office because you are responsible enough to do the right thing and not just create a smoke show and wait for everything to go away, because it won't. This movement exists on a global scale, and the people that you represent in your small town are hurting. You have the power to change that. Please help Freeport lead the charge on being the change that people are fighting for. I believe in you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Dirkowitz. Do we have anyone else, any other public members who would like to step forward and speak tonight? If not, I thank you for coming, and we are looking at a... Excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize he was coming up to the microphone. Yes, sir. Can you please state your name?
Hey, my name is Michael GG. You guys know me already, and I've worked with a couple of you guys. Really happy that I did. I'll make it short and quick, and I won't say the S word this time. Donald Parker over here just said, I can't listen to this SHIT anymore. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Eugene. Council, the next item we have on our agenda is adjournment. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Can we do a voice vote on this one?
We have them.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Roll
Not
call.
voice. We've been doing roll call.
Do a roll call, please forgive me. So we have a first by Alderman Busker, and a second, was that by Berberay? Or second by Berberay? Madam Clerk, take roll, please.
Brashaw,
Aye.
Mysick,
Aye.
Berberay,
Aye?
Borneman,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming. The meeting has been adjourned.